The reluctant vows, Eliza. Bennett stared at her reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Her chestnut hair was swept into an elegant updo, tiny pearls nestled among the curls. The wedding dress, worth more than everything, she owned combined, draped perfectly across her slender frame. 5 minutes, Miss Bennett, the wedding coordinator said, peeking into the bridal suite. Eliza nodded, her throat tight. At 24, she'd imagined her wedding day differently, surrounded by friends, marrying for love. Instead, she stood, alone, about to walk down the aisle toward a stranger. 3 months ago, she'd been drowning in medical bills from her grandmother's cancer treatments when Dominic Blackwood's lawyers approached her with a proposition. Marriage to the reclusive tech billionaire in exchange for financial security and the best medical care for her grandmother. The contract was clear. A 2-year arrangement, public appearances as needed, separate bedrooms, and absolute discretion. The cathedral doors opened and Eliza stepped forward. The gathered business associates and society elites turned to watch her walk toward Dominic Blackwood, who stood tall and imposing at the altar. At 38, Dominic was striking rather than conventionally handsome. His features were sharp, his posture rigid, and his dark eyes unreadable. He watched her approach without a hint of emotion. Their vows echoed hollowly through the cathedral. His hand was cool when he slipped the ring onto her finger. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Dominic's kiss barely brushed, her lips a performance for their audience. The reception passed in a blur of faces and forced smiles. Eliza played her part, clinging to Dominic's arm as he introduced her to people whose names she immediately forgot. "You're doing well," he murmured between introductions, his first personal words to her all day. "Thank you," she whispered back. "How much longer?" Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps at her directness. 2 hours. Their wedding night began with a silent car ride to his penthouse. Eliza stared out the window, watching the city lights blur as anxiety tightened her chest. The contract hadn't specified what would happen tonight. The penthouse was a monument to minimalist luxury, all clean lines, glass, and spectacular views of the city. Dominic loosened his tie as they entered. "Your suite is this way," he said, leading her down a hallway. "Everything you need should be there. If not, Claudia, the housekeeper, can assist you tomorrow." Eliza hesitated at the doorway of her new room. "And what happens now? With us, I mean." Dominic's expression remained neutral, but she noticed his hands tighten at his sides. "Nothing happens. The contract doesn't require that." "I know what the contract says," Eliza replied, finding unexpected courage. "But you're a businessman. You wouldn't marry someone just for appearances. There's something else you need." A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Dominic gestured toward the living room. "Perhaps we should talk." They sat across from each other, two strangers, bound by signatures on paper. "The board was pushing me to marry," he admitted. "Family stability projects confidence to investors. But there's more." He paused, seeming to weigh his words. "I need someone who won't." He stopped. "Won't what?" Eliza pressed. "Get too close," he finished. "My last relationship ended badly. I don't trust easily." Eliza studied him, this powerful man who commanded an empire yet seemed so isolated. "I'm not asking for your trust, Dominic, but if we're going to survive 2 years together, we need honesty." Something in his expression shifted. For a moment, the mask slipped, revealing a glimpse of unexpected vulnerability. Then honestly, he said quietly, "I'm better at being alone." Eliza surprised herself by reaching across the space between them, her hand stopping just short of his. "For the next 2 years, neither of us has to be alone. We can at least be allies." Dominic looked at her outstretched hand, then back to her face. Slowly, hesitantly, he reached out and briefly touched her fingers. "Allies," he agreed, the word sounding foreign on his lips. As moonlight spilled through the windows, two strangers began to talk, not of love or passion, but of boundaries and expectations. It wasn't a fairy tale beginning. But as Eliza would later realize, it was the perfect first page of their story. Fractured reflections. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows as Eliza sipped her coffee in the penthouse kitchen. 2 weeks into their arrangement, and she still felt like an intruder in Dominic's immaculate home. "Mrs. Blackwood," said a crisp voice behind her. Eliza turned to find Vivian Reed, Dominic's executive assistant, standing in the doorway. The woman's platinum blonde hair was pulled into a severe bun, her expression coolly professional. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to inform you that the charity gala is tonight. Your dress has been delivered to your suite." "Thank you, Vivian," Eliza replied, attempting warmth. "And please call me Eliza." Vivian's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. The car will be ready at 7. She hesitated. "Mrs. Blackwood, Eliza, a word of advice? These events are political minefields. Many people will be watching you, judging your worthiness to be a Blackwood." "I'm aware," Eliza said, squaring her shoulders. "Are you?" Vivian's tone sharpened. "Dominic built Black Tech from nothing. He doesn't need distractions right now, especially with the Richardson merger approaching." Before Eliza could respond, Dominic appeared in the doorway. His gaze darted between the women, sensing the tension. "Vivian, I need the proposal documents before my 10 o'clock, he said. With a nod, Vivian retreated, leaving an uncomfortable silence. "Your staff doesn't approve of me," Eliza observed. Dominic sighed, pouring himself coffee. "They're protective. I've known most of them for years. Unlike your wife of 2 weeks," Eliza added with a wry smile. Something unexpected happened then. Dominic's lips quirked upward, not quite a smile, but close. "You knew what you were signing up for." "Did I?" she challenged. "I knew the terms, but not that I'd be living with a man who works until midnight every night and leaves before dawn." Dominic stilled. "Is there a problem with our arrangement?" "No," Eliza said carefully. "But it's hard to be allies with someone who's never here." He studied her for a long moment. "The gala tonight, it's important. The Richardson family will be there. Your potential business partners." Eliza nodded. "I've been researching them." Surprise flickered across his face. "You have? What? Did you think I'd just stand around looking pretty?" she teased, surprising herself with her boldness. That almost smile appeared again. 7 o'clock then. The gala was held at the city's most prestigious art museum, a fact that eased Eliza's nerves slightly. Art was her territory. The emerald gown Dominic had selected fit her perfectly, making her feel both elegant and alien in her own skin. "You look beautiful," Dominic murmured, as they entered, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. "Thank you," she whispered, startled by the sincerity in his voice. Throughout the evening, Eliza watched Dominic transform. In public, he was charming, commanding, so different from the reserved man she lived with. He introduced her proudly, his hand never leaving hers, the perfect picture of a devoted husband. It was all for show, she reminded herself. "Mrs. Blackwood," a voice interrupted her thoughts. An older gentleman approached, martini in hand. "Jonathan Richardson. I've been looking forward to meeting the woman who captured the elusive Dominic Blackwood." "Mr. Richardson," Eliza smiled, extending her hand. "I've heard so much about your work." "Have you?" His eyes twinkled. "And what do you think of our little merger proposal?" Eliza hesitated, sensing a test. "I think," she said carefully, "that Black Tech's innovation combined with Richardson's distribution network could revolutionize accessibility to medical technology in rural areas." Jonathan's eyebrows rose. "Dominic didn't mention you were interested." "In business. I'm interested in impact," Eliza corrected. "My grandmother couldn't access proper treatment until we moved to the city. That shouldn't happen to anyone." Jonathan studied her with new appreciation. "Indeed, Mrs. Blackwood. Indeed." Later that night, as they returned to the penthouse, Dominic was unusually quiet. "Did I say something wrong?" Eliza asked, slipping off her heels. "No," Dominic said, loosening his tie. Richardson mentioned your conversation. He was impressed. Pride warmed her chest. I did my homework. Dominic moved to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. He offered one to her, then gestured toward the balcony. Surprised, Eliza followed him outside into the cool night air. My first company failed, he said abruptly, staring out at the city lights. I was 26, arrogant, convinced I knew everything. Eliza remained silent, sensing this rare openness was fragile. I'd partnered with someone I trusted implicitly. Natalie. His voice caught slightly on the name. We were engaged. The night before our IPO, she transferred all our patents to a competitor, her lover as it turned out, then disappeared. The pieces clicked into place, his isolation, his distrust, the separate bedrooms. I lost everything, Dominic continued. It took me 3 years to rebuild. I swore I'd never be vulnerable again. Is that why you married a stranger? Eliza asked softly. Someone who couldn't hurt you because you don't care about them? His eyes met hers, dark and haunted. Caring is a liability in my world, Eliza. She took a sip of whiskey, feeling its warmth spread through her chest. That sounds lonely. It's efficient, he countered. And is that enough? She challenged. Dominic didn't answer. They stood in silence, 2 broken people looking out at a city full of lights but unable to escape their own shadows. Later, as Eliza prepared for bed, she heard a gentle knock. Opening the door, she found Dominic standing there, looking oddly uncertain. Thank you, he said simply. For tonight. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, his shoulders carrying the weight of a past he couldn't escape and a future he couldn't trust. Eliza watched him go, realizing that beneath the billionaire facade was a man whose heart had been shattered so completely he'd locked away the pieces, not just from others, but from himself. Unexpected allies. 1 month into their marriage, Eliza stood in her newly converted studio space, formerly one of the penthouse's unused guest rooms. Afternoon light spilled across her canvas as she added delicate brushstrokes to her latest painting. Mrs. Blackwood. The housekeeper, Claudia, appeared at the door. Mr. Blackwood has requested your presence in his home office. Eliza glanced at her paint-stained hands. Did he say why? No, ma'am, but he seemed agitated. Washing her hands quickly, Eliza made her way to Dominic's office. She'd rarely been invited into this space, his sanctuary of glass and steel where he commanded his empire. She found him pacing, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. 3 of his executives sat around the conference table looking grim. Vivian stood by the window, arms crossed tightly. You wanted to see me? Eliza asked hesitantly. Dominic stopped pacing. The Richardson presentation is tomorrow. We've just learned they're considering Phoenix Industries' proposal instead. James Phoenix, said Russell, the marketing director, is offering integrated AI capabilities we can't match in time. We need something to stand out, Dominic continued, running a hand through his usually immaculate hair. Something distinctive that shows our vision goes beyond technology. Eliza shifted uncomfortably under the collective gaze of Dominic's team. And you think I can help with that? You mentioned impact, Dominic said. Your perspective on accessibility. It resonated with Jonathan. Vivian cleared her throat. With all due respect, this is a technical presentation. Mrs. Blackwood isn't. I'd like to hear what she thinks. Dominic interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. Eliza took a deep breath. May I see what you've prepared so far? Russell reluctantly slid a tablet toward her. Eliza reviewed the presentation. Sleek, professional, and utterly soulless. All function, no heart. It's very comprehensive, she said diplomatically. But, Dominic prompted. But it doesn't show why you care, Eliza replied. Technology without purpose is just expensive toys. Why does this merger matter to you personally? The room fell silent. Dominic's executives exchanged glances. We're not selling emotion, Vivian said. We're selling innovation. You're selling solutions to human problems, Eliza countered, finding unexpected confidence. People don't connect with circuitry, they connect with stories. She turned to Dominic. What was your first medical technology project? What inspired it? Something shifted in his expression. My mother, he said quietly. She died of a heart condition that could have been monitored remotely if the technology had existed. Eliza nodded. That's your why. That's what Richardson needs to see. Later that evening, after the executives had departed, Eliza found herself still in Dominic's office. The city lights twinkled beyond the windows as they reworked the presentation together. Your grandmother, Dominic said suddenly. How is she? Eliza looked up, surprised by the personal question. Better. The new treatment is working. Thank you for arranging it. He nodded, eyes on his computer screen. And your art? Are you finding time for it? Yes, she said cautiously. The studio space is perfect. Good. His response was clipped, but something in his tone had softened. They worked in comfortable silence until Eliza's stomach growled audibly. Dominic glanced at his watch, looking startled. It's past midnight. We should eat something. To Eliza's astonishment, Dominic led her to the kitchen and began rummaging through the refrigerator. You cook? She asked, unable to hide her surprise. Occasionally, he replied, extracting eggs and vegetables. When I was building my first company, takeout was a luxury I couldn't afford. As he prepared a simple omelet, Eliza perched on a stool, watching this unfamiliar domestic version of her husband. Why did you ask for my help today? She asked. His hands stilled momentarily. You see things differently. Not everything is about profit margins and market share. That's surprisingly sentimental coming from you, she teased gently. The corner of his mouth lifted. Don't tell my board, they think I'm heartless. Your secret's safe with me, she promised, their eyes meeting in a moment of genuine connection. The next day, Eliza sat beside Dominic as he presented to the Richardson family. She watched with quiet pride as he incorporated her suggestions, speaking not just of technology, but of vision, of a world where medical care wasn't limited by geography or economic status. When he shared the story of his mother, his voice steady but thick with emotion, Eliza instinctively reached for his hand under the table. To her surprise, he accepted it, his fingers wrapping around hers. Jonathan Richardson leaned forward, engaged in a way he hadn't been with the technical specifications. This is what we've been waiting to hear, Dominic. Not just what your company does, but why it matters. The deal was sealed with handshakes and champagne. As the Richardsons departed, Jonathan paused beside Eliza. You've brought something valuable to Dominic's life, Mrs. Blackwood, he said quietly, something he's been missing for a long time. That evening, as they returned to the penthouse, an unfamiliar lightness surrounded them. Success hung in the air, along with something else, a tentative trust. We make a good team, Eliza said as they stepped into the elevator. Dominic studied her face. Yes, he agreed, his voice low. We do. When the elevator doors opened to their penthouse, Dominic surprised her by offering his arm. Would you join me for a celebratory drink? As they stood on the balcony, glasses in hand, the city spread out before them like a blanket of stars, Eliza realized something had fundamentally shifted. The wall between them, still standing, still solid, now had a door. And for the first time, that door stood slightly ajar. Two unexpected allies, Dominic said, raising his glass. Two new beginnings, Eliza responded, her glass touching his with a gentle chime that seemed to echo with possibility. Shattered glass. 3 months into their marriage, Eliza woke to the sound of laughter, a rare and startling noise in the usually silent penthouse. Curious, she followed the sound to the kitchen where she found Dominic talking on his phone, a genuine smile transforming his face. That's excellent news, Dr. Patterson, he was saying. Yes, we'll proceed immediately. Thank you. He ended the call and turned, noticing Eliza in the doorway. Good morning, she said, studying his unusually bright expression. Good news? The Richardson Partnership's first project, the remote monitoring system, the pilot program in rural communities, is showing a 97% success rate. Dominic, that's wonderful, Eliza exclaimed. Then something extraordinary happened. Dominic crossed the kitchen in 2 strides and, caught in the moment, pulled Eliza into an embrace. She froze briefly before her arms tentatively wrapped around him, feeling the solid warmth of him against her. Just as quickly he stepped back, composure returning as though a switch had been flipped. But something had changed, a boundary crossed, a new awareness humming between them. "I have meetings downtown," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "But I thought, perhaps we could have dinner tonight, to celebrate." "I'd like that," Eliza replied, trying to ignore the lingering sensation of his arms around her. Throughout the day, Eliza found herself distracted as she worked in her studio. The swift, powerful connection she'd felt in that brief embrace had caught her off guard. This wasn't part of their agreement. This flutter in her chest, this anticipation of seeing him again. By evening, she'd changed outfits 3 times before, settling on a simple blue dress that brought out the gold flecks in her eyes. She told herself it was merely appropriate for a celebration dinner, nothing more. Dominic returned early, wearing a fresh suit and carrying a bouquet of stargazer lilies, her favorite, though she couldn't remember telling him. "These are beautiful," she said, accepting them with a surprised smile. "I noticed you painted them in your last piece," and he explained, a hint of self-consciousness in his voice. The realization that he'd been paying attention to her work sent a warm current through her. Dinner was at a small, elegant restaurant overlooking the harbor. As they sat across from each other, candlelight dancing between them, Eliza hardly recognized the man before her. Dominic spoke animatedly about the medical project's success, asked questions about her painting, laughed at her stories, about Claudia's overprotectiveness of the kitchen. "I've never seen you like this," Eliza admitted after their second glass of wine. "Like what?" he asked, his dark eyes reflecting the candlelight. "Happy?" she said simply. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. "It's been a long time since I had reason to be." The moment hung between them, fragile and precious. Eliza found herself leaning forward, drawn by an invisible thread that had been quietly strengthening between them. Their moment was shattered by a cool voice from beside their table. "Dominic, what a surprise." They both looked up to see a striking woman with raven hair and ice-blue eyes. Eliza felt Dominic stiffen instantly, his face draining of all the warmth it had held moments before. "Natalie," he said, his voice flat. Eliza's stomach dropped. Natalie, the fiancée who had betrayed him, destroyed his first company, broken his heart. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your wife?" Natalie's eyes slid to Eliza, assessing and dismissive in a single glance. "Eliza, this is Natalie Vega," Dominic said mechanically. "Natalie, my wife Eliza." "Charmed," Natalie said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I was surprised to hear about your marriage, Dominic. It seemed rather sudden." "What are you doing in the city, Natalie?" Dominic asked, ignoring her insinuation. "Business," she replied vaguely. "Phoenix Industries is expanding its medical technology division. Perhaps you've heard?" "Phoenix Industries," Eliza repeated, the pieces clicking into place. "You work with James Phoenix?" "I'm his CFO," Natalie replied, her smile sharpening. "And longtime partner." Dominic's jaw tightened visibly. "If you'll excuse us, we were just leaving." The ride home was silent, the easy camaraderie of dinner replaced by a tension so thick Eliza could barely breathe. When they reached the penthouse, Dominic headed straight for his office. "Dominic," Eliza called after him. "Wait." He stopped, but didn't turn. "Talk to me," she pleaded. "Don't shut me out." "There's nothing to discuss," he said, his voice distant. "There is," Eliza insisted, moving to stand before him. "You can't let her appearance erase everything that happened tonight." His eyes met hers, cold and guarded once more. "Tonight was a mistake. I let my guard down." The words stung more than they should have. "A mistake? Was that all it was to you?" "What did you think it was, Eliza?" he challenged. Did you forget our arrangement? This isn't real. She stepped back as if slapped. Maybe not initially, but something has changed between us, Dominic. You know it has. Nothing's changed, he insisted. Nothing can change. The next morning, Dominic had already left when Eliza woke. She found Vivian in the kitchen looking troubled. Mrs. Blackwood, Vivian said formally. There's something you should know. She slid a business tablet across the counter. On the screen was a financial news article. Phoenix Industries announces hostile takeover bid for black tech subsidiaries. This is Natalie's work, Vivian said, her usual coolness toward Eliza replaced with grim solidarity. She's been planning this for months. The timing of the Richardson deal wasn't coincidental. Does Dominic know? Eliza asked, heart sinking. He's been in emergency meetings since dawn. Vivian hesitated. He's not himself. Later that day, as Eliza paced anxiously in her studio, her phone rang with an unknown number. Mrs. Blackwood, a familiar voice purred. Natalie Vega. I thought we should chat, woman to woman. About what? Eliza asked warily. About your husband, Natalie replied, and what he hasn't told you about our arrangement. What arrangement? Eliza's voice sharpened. Did you really think he married you for your charm? Natalie laughed. He needed a wife to secure his position before our takeover, and I needed someone to distract him while we positioned our assets. You're lying, Eliza said, but doubt crept into her voice. Am I? Ask him about the night before your wedding. Ask him who he met with. The call ended, leaving Eliza standing amidst her half-finished paintings, feeling as though the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. When Dominic finally returned that evening, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. Eliza was waiting in the living room, her suitcase beside her. What's this? He asked, stopping short. Did you meet with Natalie the night before our wedding? Eliza asked, her voice barely steady. The color drained from his face. Eliza. Just answer the question, Dominic. His silence was confirmation. Enough. Was any of it real? She whispered. Or was I just a convenient shield in your corporate game? It wasn't like that, he said, taking a step toward her. She backed away. I thought we were becoming something more than our contract. I thought, her voice broke, I thought you were beginning to care. Eliza, please, I'm staying with my grandmother tonight, she said, picking up her suitcase. I need space to think. As she reached the door, his voice stopped her. She came to me with a deal, he said hoarsely. Information about Phoenix's plans in exchange for shares in Black Tech. I refused. Eliza turned slowly. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed, he admitted. Ashamed that even after everything, a part of me still wanted to trust her. And then I met you, really met you, and realized what trust actually means. Their eyes locked across the room, the truth suspended between them like shattered glass. Beautiful, dangerous, impossible to piece together exactly as it was before. I need time, Eliza said finally. As the elevator doors closed between them, Eliza leaned against the wall, heart pounding. She'd entered this marriage as a business arrangement, never expecting to lose her heart in the process. Now she had to decide if that heart was worth risking on a man who might never fully let her in. Healing light. 3 days after leaving the penthouse, Eliza sat beside her grandmother's bed, sketching absently as the older woman dozed. Helen Bennett's room in the upscale care facility, paid for by Dominic, was filled with sunlight and the scent of the fresh flowers delivered daily. You're drawing him again, Helen observed, eyes still closed. Eliza glanced down at her sketchpad, startled to find Dominic's profile emerging on the page. She'd been doing this unconsciously since leaving. His eyes, his hands, the rare smile, that transformed his face. I don't know what to do, Grandma, Eliza admitted, setting the sketchpad aside. Helen opened her eyes, wisdom shining in their blue depths. In my experience, when someone keeps drawing the same face over and over, the heart has already decided. It's complicated, Eliza sighed. Love usually is, Helen replied. The question isn't whether he hurt you. We all hurt each other. It's whether what you're building together is worth the pain. A gentle knock interrupted them. Eliza turned to find Russell, Dominic's marketing director, standing awkwardly in the doorway. Mrs. Blackwood, he said formally. May I speak with you privately? Curious, Eliza followed him to the facility's garden. Dominic doesn't know I'm here, Russell began. He'd probably fire me if he knew. What's happening at Black Tech? Eliza asked, concern overriding her personal turmoil. Phoenix Industries' takeover bid has intensified. They're exploiting Dominic's distraction. Russell hesitated. He's not sleeping, barely eating. The board is panicking. Why are you telling me this? Because in 3 months of working with you, I've seen Dominic change. Before you, he was brilliant but cold. With you, he became human again. Russell looked uncomfortable with such emotional territory. The company needs that version of him. We all do. After Russell left, Eliza walked aimlessly through the garden, thoughts churning. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vivian containing only an address and time. 2 hours later, Eliza found herself in a small cafe across town. Vivian sat waiting, immaculate as always, but with dark circles under her eyes. Thank you for coming, Vivian said, pushing a folder across the table. These are documents Natalie sent to Dominic yesterday. Inside were photographs. Dominic and Natalie meeting at a hotel the night before his wedding to Eliza. She's threatening to leak these to the press, Vivian explained. To suggest your marriage was a sham while he maintained a relationship with her. It would destroy the Richardson deal, Eliza realized. Their family values traditional partnerships. Vivian nodded. Dominic refused to pay her blackmail. He said he wouldn't lie to you again, even to save the company. Eliza's hands trembled slightly. Why show me this? Because I was wrong about you, Vivian admitted. I thought you were after his money, but you've proven to be something he needed far more. Someone who sees him as a man, not just a CEO. That evening, Eliza sat in her grandmother's garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. Her phone displayed dozens of missed calls from Dominic over the past 3 days, but only one voicemail, left the previous night. Heart pounding, she finally pressed play. Eliza. His voice was rough, exhausted. I don't expect you to forgive me, but before you decide, there's something you should know. When I agreed to this marriage, I thought I was protecting myself, choosing someone who couldn't hurt me because I wouldn't care about them. A pause, a shaky breath. I was wrong. So wrong because I do care, Eliza. More than I thought possible. More than I've allowed myself to care about anything in years. Another pause. Longer. I'm selling Black Tech, he continued, his voice steadier now. The board will accept Phoenix's offer tomorrow. I built this company to create something lasting, something meaningful. But I've realized that without someone to share it with, none of it matters. The message ended, leaving Eliza stunned. Dawn found her at the Black Tech building, slipping past security with the access card she still carried. The boardroom was already filled with executives and lawyers when she entered, Dominic standing at the head of the table, papers spread before him. He looked up, disbelief washing over his features. Eliza? Mrs. Blackwood. Jonathan Richardson greeted her warmly from his seat at the table. We weren't expecting you. I apologize for interrupting, she said, heart hammering as all eyes turned to her. But I have information relevant to today's decision. She moved to Dominic's side, their shoulders nearly touching. Phoenix Industries' offer isn't what it seems, she continued, addressing the room. Natalie Vega has been manipulating this situation from the beginning. Pulling the folder from her bag, she laid out the photographs. These were sent to blackmail my husband. Not because he did anything wrong, but because Natalie Vega knows that destroying our marriage would destroy the Richardson partnership and make Black Tech vulnerable. Jonathan Richardson studied the photos with a frown. Is this true, Dominic? Yes, Dominic admitted. She approached me with information about Phoenix's plans. I refused her offer. And your marriage? Jonathan pressed. These photos suggest our marriage began as an arrangement, Eliza interrupted, her voice clear and certain. But it has become something neither of us expected. She turned to Dominic, finding courage in his stunned expression. Something real. After a tense silence, Jonathan rose. I believe we need to reconsider Phoenix's offer in light of this unethical approach. Mrs. Blackwood, would you excuse us? In the hallway outside, Eliza waited, anxiety and hope battling within her. When the door finally opened, executives filed out, nodding respectfully as they passed. Jonathan Richardson paused beside her. Your husband is a lucky man, he said quietly. Not for his company, but for finding someone willing to fight for him. When only Dominic remained in the boardroom, Eliza entered cautiously. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the morning light. You came back, he said, turning to face her. I heard your message, she replied, stepping closer. Did you mean it? About selling the company? Yes, he said without hesitation. None of it matters without you. And what happens now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic crossed the distance between them, stopping just short of touching her. That depends on you. Our contract specified 2 years, but I'd understand if you wanted to end it now. And if I don't? She challenged softly. His eyes searched hers. Then I'd ask for something different, not a contract, not an arrangement, a real marriage. Day by day, learning to trust each other. It won't be easy, Eliza warned. You've spent years building walls. And you've spent months showing me that the right person can climb them, he countered, a hint of that rare smile touching his lips. Eliza reached up, her palm resting against his cheek. I'm not going anywhere, Dominic. Whatever comes next, we face it together. His arms encircled her, drawing her against him as his forehead rested against hers. Together, he echoed, the word a promise. 6 months later, Eliza stood in her gallery, surrounded by her first professional exhibition. The collection, titled Fractured Light, featured paintings inspired by her journey with Dominic, broken pieces illuminated by unexpected beauty. The centerpiece was a portrait of Dominic, not as the world saw him, powerful, untouchable, but as she knew him, complex, vulnerable, capable of extraordinary love when brave enough to risk it. It's strange, Dominic murmured, his arm around her waist as they stood before the painting. Seeing myself through your eyes. Is it how you see yourself? She asked. Getting there, he admitted. With your help. Across the room, Helen Bennett chatted animatedly with Jonathan Richardson while Vivian, now a friend, directed caterers with her characteristic efficiency. I have something for you, Dominic said, guiding Eliza to a quiet corner. From his pocket, he withdrew a small box. Inside lay a ring, not the formal diamond of their arranged marriage, but a band of interwoven gold and silver, studded with tiny sapphires that matched her eyes. What's this for? She asked, emotion catching in her throat. Our vows were for show, he explained, taking her hand. I'd like to make real ones now, not as a business transaction, but as a man who loves his wife. Tears blurred Eliza's vision as he slipped the ring onto her finger, beside the first one. From arrangement to devotion, she whispered, echoing the title of her final painting. No, Dominic corrected gently, drawing her into his arms. From strangers to family, from darkness to light, from fear to love. As his lips met hers, Eliza knew that some contracts were meant to be broken, some arrangements destined to become something far more precious, and some hearts, even those long guarded behind walls of pain, were always meant to find their way. Oh. In the soft gallery light surrounded by art born from their journey, Eliza and Dominic held each other close. Two people who had entered marriage as a business arrangement but discovered that love, when it finally breaks through, is the most valuable asset of all.